Hello, I'm Jeff Gale, NDSU Extension Agent in Foster County. The title of this presentation is Managing Soil Salinity. Not losing money is a win. Most producers in our region have salt-affected areas in their fields that are not productive. An extension agent in the eastern part of the state believes that every quarter of land in his county has at least 5 acres that are affected by salinity. The problem is not low nutrient levels, but excess soluble salts that restrict crop growth and development. Sometimes sodium is present, and that sodium destroys soil structure. Many producers tell me that they see these areas growing larger. Earlier this year, I was driving around Foster County with a producer when we started talking about salt-affected soils, which many call alkali soil. The producer said to me, "We just can't help ourselves. Something drives 95% of us to fertilize and plant alkali areas in our fields, even though we know these areas are unlikely to produce a crop." I checked farm statistics compiled by NDSU extension specialists. The seed, chemical, fuel, and repair costs of a corn-soybean rotation in east central North Dakota average $225 per acre per year. If we do the math, planting a 3-acre area of salinized land would cost nearly $3,400 over 5 years, with little, if any, production. This raises the question, am I farming pieces of salt-affected land that are consistently losing money? If so, why am I doing that? I want to be clear, I'm not saying that we should save money by farming around those salt-affected areas. If we do that, the areas will just grow larger. On the contrary, if we don't manage salinity today, it will be worse tomorrow. Though unproductive areas in fields are frustrating and may seem difficult to resolve, there are ways we can address the issue. We don't have to just walk away. With proper management, we can save money and perhaps even return some land to production, profitable production, in the future. Soil salinity becomes an issue when water tables are close to the soil surface. Evaporative demand pulls the water upward, and as the water moves, it carries soluble salts along with it. The water evaporates at the soil surface, but the salts become concentrated in the plant root zone, where they interfere with crop growth. Salinization is made worse by any management practice or condition that increases salinity. One example is ponded water in sloughs or along roads and ditches. That water can move horizontally and evaporate some distance away. It leaves a concentration of salt, which can interfere with crop growth. Another example is tillage, which increases evaporation by breaking the soil crust and turning the field a darker color. So how do we start to reverse the process of salinization? The first thing to note is that there are several different kinds of salt. We need to know what kind of salt is present at a site and also its concentration before we can develop a clear plan of action. So the first step is to collect soil samples from the 0 to 6 and 6 to 24-inch depths. It's even better if we can collect soil samples to a depth of 3 or 4 feet. Soil test results allow us to evaluate the site and determine the best course of action. County extension agents can advise about which tests are needed. They can help with the interpretation of the test results, and they can also help to develop a plan. The solution to water salinity is to reverse the direction of water movement. We need water to move downward so that soluble salts are carried out of the root zone. The key is to dry out the soil so that rainwater is able to infiltrate and move downward through the profile, carrying salts with it. One way to dry out the soil is to install a tile drainage system, which allows excess water to drain away. Once the soil dries out, rainwater can percolate downward through the profile, carrying salts away with it. Although tiling is expensive, it can be very effective way of dealing with salt-affected areas. There is a word of caution, however. Earlier I mentioned that there are different kinds of salt in the soil profile, and that it was important to do testing to determine what kind of salts were present. If sodium is present, then tiling will not be effective unless calcium is added to the soil. Why? Sodium destroys soil structure and interferes with water movement through the soil. If sodium levels are high, most rainwater will pond at the soil surface. There won't be enough water movement to flush salt from the root zone. It may be possible to add calcium after tiling is installed. However, this may not be economically practical. The bottom line is it's wise to spend $125 to test the soil for sodium before investing a lot of money in a tile drainage system. A less expensive solution is to plant salt-tolerant grasses in these saline areas. Deep-rooted grasses dry out the soil, reducing evaporation and slowly lowering the water table. When it rains, water can infiltrate the dry soil and percolate downward, carrying the salts with it. The goal is to get something established there, some kind of vegetative cover. And there are many grass species to choose from. Those grasses will grow where nothing else will grow. For livestock producers who are interested in forage production, AC saltlander, new high hybrid wheatgrass, and salt-tolerant alfalfa are all recommended. These plants produce well in saline soil and yield fair to good quality forage. If forage production isn't important to you, then it's recommended to plant a mix of tall wheatgrass and either Canada or Russian wild rye and salt-tolerant alfalfa. These plant species produce lower quality forage, but their seed is much less expensive. Seeding rate should be a total of 8 to 12 pounds an acre. Seed costs typically run $40 to $70 per acre. Fuel and repairs cost $30 an acre. The total investment is $70 to $100 per acre, which is much less than the amount of money we're losing if we plant and fertilize those alkali areas. Salinity can be reduced. It comes down to water management. It's up to the producer to determine if they want to use salt-tolerant grasses or tile drainage system. Both methods are effective. It's important to note that regardless of the method, the total reclamation of saline soil is a long-term process. It took decades for some soils to become saline, and it will take several years to see the benefits of whatever practices are implemented. Brad Drummond, NDSU extension agent in Walsh County, perhaps said it best. Get a plan, Figure out what you have with a soil test and start moving towards your goal. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to talk with you more about saline soils. Thank you.